Okay, welcome everybody. It's good to have our friend and in some ways our educational mentor.
Yes, that's what we like to consider ourselves.
Walt Kero joining us.
As opposed to our disciplinary mentor.
Oh.
We're not as always happy to see him.
But anyway, Walt Kero joining us. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing fabulous. We were talking a little earlier, my wife and I had a 9-day Canadian vacation, take advantage of the exchange rates.
Okay, now do me a favor and just explain this whole concept of vacation, would you? Because it's
appropriate time for a primer for Peter because he's taking vacation next week.
I am taking a vacation next week, and of course I've already blown it with my wife, who is but I'm taking a week and she has to work, and so there's not a lot of happy harmony in the home right now.
Well, Peter, I think you're caught up in the quagmire of being a male who wants to be the provider, and you take that job very seriously. So everything in your life is going to be centered around the idea of being the provider.
Oh, he's looking askew here. You don't seem to be sympathizing.
I'm just a boring slug is all I am. You and I were talking about the fact that I somehow, somewhere in the 42 years I've been doing this job, okay, I've lost the ability to go out and have fun. I don't, it's like I've told John before, A, I wouldn't know where to go, and B, I wouldn't know what to do when I got there. So it's like you just keep working.
Well, you haven't done it in so long. You don't know what to do.
That's why Monday's always my favorite day of the week, because that nasty, unstructured weekend time is done. You got things to do, and woohoo!
Yeah, but taking time off for yourself is like riding a bicycle. Once you learn how to do it, you can do it.
Well, I have an idea.
No, what about with the two wheels?
Oh,
okay.
What about something like a vacation timeshare? So, like, what you'll do is you'll take a day of vacation,
right?
But so that you know what to do, you give half of the day to me, and I'll show you something fun to do, and then I'll come back, and then you can go do that thing that I did.
But
then you don't even have to worry about what's fun or interesting.
I would have to take your 3 kids along, and they would hate that.
They would probably like it.
Who's the old guy? Anyway, all right. So, okay, moving right along. Enough of my silly problems. So tell us what you did in Canada.
What we did in Canada, my wife and I, we went soaked in some hot springs, did some hiking to a place called Dog Lake in the Kootenay National Park, hiked in Banff National Park, Jasper National Park.
You saw a wolf.
We saw a wolf about a mile outside the town of Jasper. He was an old duffer because his hair was all frizzy and it looked
very
like
Trumpy
he'd just
looking,
been blown dried.
Yeah, sure, it wasn't Donald Trump.
No, it wasn't Donald.
All right.
Nope, not the Donald. And saw quite a few head of elk and bighorn sheep, and we hiked up. There's a book by a fellow, and he made a reference to Edith Cavell. And Edith Cavell was a nurse in World War I. I think she was in the Netherlands, and she was a nurse helping both sides soldiers deal with their wounds.
Yeah, because that's what medical people do.
And you know what some meathead with authority did? Oh, she's helping the other side shoot her. Boom.
Oh.
So they named a mountain after her up. You can see it within the town site of Jasper called Mount Edith Cavell. It's a pretty tall mountain. And we hiked up a good share of that, my wife and I. And my wife doesn't like verticals so much.
That's why she married you.
Yeah, that's why she married me. That's why I'm so short. Yes.
Wow.
Oh, man. Sorry about that one.
Oh, a low blow. Yeah,
that was pretty. Well, it's
literally a low blow.
It's been nice having Walt on the show, but since he's going to cancel now, thanks, John. From now on, you get to give us all of our tax advice. You putz, what's the matter with you? You don't insult our guest.
Boy, are we gonna do? Hey,
I think John's going to be the one getting a week off here pretty quick.
Yeah, remember, John, payback's a B word.
I'm sorry. We have way too much fun on this show, folks. But please go ahead.
Oh, yeah, 5'8", boy, that's pushing it. Yeah. Anyway, enough about my height.
Yes, but anyway,
that's the relevant thing.
But you had
vacation,
fun.
Yeah. We went up there. Kind of a long story. My wife, who, God bless her, I love her to death. She's a professor at the university and probably the best professor out there. But she, after her dad was killed in a plane accident, her dad was a pilot. her mom and her family moved to Canada, and so she became what they call a landed immigrant. And to this day, I still don't know what that means, but she was kind of like a partial Canadian citizen, graduated from high school there. But we wanted to get some Hudson Bay blankets, and they won't ship to the U.S. So we had we got some Hudson Bay blankets. So besides
and you
hiking
smuggled
and whatnot,
them in,
we went shopping.
All right, well, good to you. Good for you.
Oh, yeah, but
Good to have
Edmonton
you
and
back.
Calgary are great towns, and,
Okay.
Alberta's a lot like Montana.
Yeah,
You
you
flat
look-
in the east and mountains in the west.
Rested and refreshed.
Oh, yeah, we're ready to rock.
Ready to rock. Now, first of all, I understand that we have something to celebrate. As far as you, even though you've been in the business a long time, you keep moving up in the world.
Well, yeah, we keep trying to promote and advance and get better. And, we've been negotiating with Dave Ramsey and his folks, and shortly we'll be able to make an announcement. But we'll be able to. I will be an ELP. Now the territory, because this is exclusive, will be Highway 200 north to the Canadian border, west of the Continental Divide.
That's, by the
and
way,
Idaho
an
border.
endorsed local provider.
Yeah, ELP, endorsed local provider. And it's an exclusivity thing. And there's somebody who's an ELP here in the Missoula area, and that's locked up. So I couldn't get that. But I'll take what we can get.
Sure. Well,
And Dave Ramsey's got 9 million listeners a week.
Well, you bet.
I really love his philosophy. Who can't argue with his philosophy on that?
Well, I have a clip of someone else's.
No more
philosophy.
short jokes, John.
It's not a short joke, no. Although Donald Trump is involved. We mentioned him earlier when you said you saw the scraggly-haired wolf. He was talking about taxes the other day and how much he pays in taxes, and the statement he made reminded me of you.
Okay.
And so if you could pull this up, Peter.
Sure,
It's
I'm
Donald
ready.
Trump on taxes.
Here we go.
Hillary Clinton released some information about her wealth, showed she paid almost 40% of her income in taxes. Will you release your tax returns, and what do you think that percentage will be for you?
Well, I may tie it to a release of Hillary's emails. I may very well do that. Now,
Perfect.
I have a very big company. They all said I wouldn't release my financials, and then I released them, and they were far bigger than anybody thought. They said I wouldn't release them because his company maybe, or his success maybe isn't as big. Well, it turned out that it's far bigger, and I released them, and we'll see what I'm going to do with tax returns. I have no major problem with it, but I may tie them to a release of Hillary's emails.
Perfect.
What's your guess on your percentage of income that's paid in taxes?
You know what? And I've said this many times, so it's not exactly breaking news. I pay as little as possible. I fight like hell to pay as little as possible for two reasons. Number one, I'm a businessman, and that's the way you're supposed to do it, and you put the money back into your company and employees and all of that. But the other reason is that I hate the way our government spends our taxes. I hate the way they waste our money, trillions and trillions of dollars of waste and abuse, and I hate it. And I'll be probably the first candidate in the history of politics within this country to say it. I try, and like every single taxpayer out there, I try to pay as little tax as possible. And again, one of the big reasons is I hate what our country does with the money that we pay.
Wow. Yes. Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way that guy's getting elected. No way.
What? That was the best thing he said. I have to say, I agree with him 100% on this.
I have a plaque on my wall. In my office.
Right, I've been there.
And there's two of them. One's a quotation from Tom Edison.
Right next to the rack and the kneeling pads.
Oh yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you haven't seen my stretcher yet.
No, I haven't seen the stretcher yet.
Stretcher.
The rack.
The rack.
Oh, gotcha.
okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
But anyway, one of the quotes I have on my wall is from a 1936 tax court or tax case, and the judge was a fellow by the name of Learned Hand, and the quotation that he came up with was based upon this court case where an IRS agent was kind of rogue and went after this corporation and its officers on a personal basis. And that's the flavor the judge got from it. And the judge said basically what Donald Trump just said. There is nothing wrong with arranging your affairs to pay the least amount of tax. In fact, there isn't even a patriotic duty to do so. So what Donald Trump is saying here was reflected in a court case where a judge was admonishing the IRS over that very particular issue. So it's all on the basis of legalities, but God knows our tax laws are so complex. It's mind-boggling. But the concept is you shouldn't have to pay any more than you're quote unquote required to do so by law. That's pretty much what Mr. Trumpster's saying there.
We're going to come right back. We're overdue for a break. We have all three lines open, by the way. If you have a question for our wonderful Walt Kero, give us wonderful Walt. Wow. Coming up with all sorts of appellations for you today.
Oh, yeah, we're getting them done.
Wonderful Walt, the super CPA.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. It's John King. I'm Peter Christian, the wonderful Walt Kero, joining us, the super CPA.
Yeah, we're having a good time.
We do have Dave on the line who wants to visit with you. Good morning, Dave.
Morning.
Morning, Dave.
Walt, my limited understanding of the tax law is that insurance proceeds are generally not taxable. Would that include a long-term health care policy where you get a return of premium rider?
Yes and no. This one's extremely complex, but it depends upon the insurance that you're getting proceeds from. Generally, life insurance, of course, usually the deceased not around to collect, but the deceased beneficiaries are. That's generally not taxable. It's only a rare occasion where life insurance proceeds can be taxable. With long-term care insurance, if you've taken deductions for the long-term care insurance, has a medical expense, to certain extents, if you have a benefit from a tax deduction, some or all of that may become taxable. It's a really complex calculation, and it's full of weeds and alligators and pike with a lot of teeth. So, you'd have to look at all your facts and circumstances there, because if you're taking deductions for the cost of the long-term care insurance, when it comes back to you, it may be something that would reduce your medical expenses in the year you got a receipt. I don't think it'll end up being taxable income per se, but it may reduce your deductions. Am I making any sense?
Let me ask you this. Is this something, and Dave, you might want to chime in here because this is your case, is this something that you probably shouldn't want to handle on your own as far as figuring out for your taxes, or perhaps a trained CPA should help?
Yeah, I think you should get professional help on this one, because this is extremely complex.
Dave,
am I helping you, Dave, or am I making it worse?
Yes, I did take deductions, and that's all handled by my CPA, and I'm sure there'll be a way for Uncle Sugar to get his finger in there.
Yeah, but for example, and this is kind of a universal rule that the tax laws have. If you've taken a deduction for something, and in a subsequent year you get reimbursed from some other party as a result of that deduction, then chances are it either becomes income, or in some cases you can reduce your current year deductions for that same item, say like medical expense. That would not be as bad as having to pick it up as income. So, that's a tough one.
With my luck, it'll be normal income.
Yeah. You're talking about luck. Yeah, then luck's got something to do with it. But, it just depends. Are we talking about a lot of money here?
About $17,000.
Yeah, that's significant enough.
That's
but I think, I'd have to go in and take a look.
I'm sorry. Over how long, Dave?
Well, it was a rider. If I did not substantially have any paid benefit from then after 10 years had elapsed, this return of premium rider would kick in, and you get a return on it. It's not all your premiums. It's a percentage of it.
Yeah, if you want me to pursue this further, I'd like to give you a more specific answer, just because it is so complex. But what I'm telling you about what we call in tax law, it's called the tax benefit rule, and that's the fancy short words for describing what I just said about if you take a deduction for something and get it reimbursed to you later, generally that becomes income, like on state refunds. That's the quickest example. Like if you deduct your Montana taxes against a prior year's income tax, and then you get a refund from Montana within certain parameters, that becomes taxable. So that's kind of the quagmire you get in. But to define whether or not you get a benefit from that deduction, that's where it gets weird, because there's these floor on medical deductions. So part of your medical deductions you don't get to deduct. Yeah. So sometimes you get a benefit and sometimes you don't. And I would talk to your tax advisor about that and say, hey, am I going to have to either pay tax on this, or am I going to get a reduced deduction from this?
I'll be doing it today. I'm sure we'll shoot him some money just to keep him happy until...
Yeah, but it depends on facts and circumstances, and this is just one part of your tax puzzle.
The joys of being self-employed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that even puts an additional perspective on it from Peter's point of view. He knows all about being self-employed.
Amen, brother. Hey, Dave, thanks for the call. Best of luck to you, okay?
Yeah, good question. Thanks. I like those.
All right, we're going to come right back. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. And I've just figured out whatever happened to Machiavelli. He now works for the EPA.
Really?
I'll tell you why that is.
Is he a coal scrubber?
When we come right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290. Got about 3 minutes before the top of the hour. Now, John put together an excellent news story yesterday regarding the Public Service Commission and the whole, clean power plan that President Obama and the EPA has put forward. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I called the PSC because this has happened recently. Twice in the recent past, the EPA has been overturned by the Supreme Court on new regulations it's proposed. And it's gotten overturned.
This is the Montana Supreme Court?
No, this is the U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh, the big dog.
Actually, just in June, the EPA got hit for their coal emissions regulations. They put these regulations out. The marketplace responded because they were all going to get soaked, right? If they didn't put new scrubbers, if they didn't put new filters, if they didn't put new upgrades and infrastructure into their coal plants, they were going to get hit with big fines and penalties, right? So they went ahead and they did that. Well, it got to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, EPA, you can't do this. You have to count the cost before you put a regulation of this magnitude into place. So the EPA went back with its tail down between its legs. However, all of the upgrades were already done, or a lot of them were, including here in Montana. One coal plant closed.
The J.E. Corrett plant in Billings had to close because of that. Because of those millions of dollars of upgrades, they couldn't afford to stay in business.
Another plant had to put upgrades in, and what happens is those upgrades, the fees for them went back to the taxpayers. So I asked the ratepayers. The ratepayer. Yes, sorry, ratepayers. Now, I asked the PSC, I said, hey, there's a new regulation that was released on Monday. This is the Clean Power Plan that was released. And the Clean Power Plan is one of these things, kind of similar to the emissions plan, where it could cost a lot of money to the producers of electricity if they upgrade their infrastructure, right? And I said, well, hey, can you signal to Montana energy providers that if they invest in this before the Supreme Court gets a chance to see it, that maybe they're not going to get the money back for it, and make them wait until it gets through the courts? And the PSC that I talked to, Mr. Bushnell, he said basically, we could vote against giving them a rate hike because of an infrastructure improvement that was done because of this act. But even if we did, it would go to the district court, and the district court would pretty much be forced to okay it because they have a reasonable argument that they need to do the upgrade.
So basically, President Obama and his friends at the EPA,
minions,
are saying, we don't care how this gets done. We could care less if you have to spend millions and billions of dollars, and even if the decision's overturned by the Supreme Court, the work's already been done. So it's done. And so it's basically the ends justify the means. That's what I meant by Machiavelli is working for the EPA.
And our government today
just frosted me.
And this might interest you, Walt.
Okay.
Property taxes. Well, we'll talk about it after the break.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And I sent out, to you in a very early email about, hey, we're going to talk about scams.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, we're back. Man, we got most of the problems of the world worked out during the newscast.
Well, a couple of them.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So lines are open 721-1290. What do you think of my comparison with the EPA and Machiavelli?
Oh, I think it's spot on. If you look at the Dodd-Frank bill and what it did to banking and the closure, mergers of a lot of small-town banks across this country into bigger banks, you're seeing the effects of uber regulation stifling competition.
At least with Dodd-Frank, though, it had to go through the legislature. This EPA regulation, just write and push it out there. Mm-hmm. And that's the scarier thing. Hey, I wanted to read something for you. Awesome. Trump's tax plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Get your take on it. All right.
Okay.
Billionaire businessman Donald Trump. Maybe we should write 10 billionaire businessman. Donald Trump has a plan to lay off or pay off the national debt, grant a middle-class tax cut, and keep Social Security afloat. Tax rich people like himself. Trump, a candidate for the presidential nomination, is proposing a one-time net worth tax on individuals and trusts worth more than $10 million. By Trump's calculations, his proposed 14.25% levy on such net worth would raise $5.7 trillion, wiping out the debt in one fell swoop. The U.S. national debt increased by $9.7 billion. Anyway, you got the plan, basically. What do you think of it?
Okay, I'm not real crazy about the idea of this is an appropriation of assets from, well, arguably you want to say wealthy people because they'd have to have a net worth more than $10 million?
14.25% levy on net worth over $10 million or more.
Yeah. Okay, the rate isn't too bad because the state tax rates are now about 45%, federal tax, and that's above $5.3 million of net worth, so to speak. And so, it may have some benefits, but he should put and have a caveat in there, a disclaimer that says the tax raised by this cannot be spent except to retire debt.
Well, even that.
Because if you give politicians more money, they will frivol it away on whatever cockamamie program they can invent.
The three things it plans to go for are grant a middle-class tax cut, keep Social Security afloat, and pay off the national debt.
Okay.
I would be in favor of it if it was just totally to write off the debt. The other things should be funded not from this tax, but from what the existing structure is.
I'm a little bit surprised that you're cool with it, to be honest.
Well, it's addressing a huge problem out there that hasn't been dealt with yet. Congress and the administration keep kicking the can down the road. But go ahead.
I should also point out that this is not Trump's plan now. This was Trump's plan back in 1999 when he proposed this big tax hike on the rich. But, I mean, I could imagine Bernie Sanders saying almost the same thing, except for he would say it would all go towards college tuition or making teachers get fair wages or something.
Now, here's the problem. If I may be allowed to speak.
Please do.
Here's the problem. First of all, I understand exactly what you're saying, but the problem is if this is not accompanied by a genuine, with lots of teeth, balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, then you're going to have to do this every 10 years because, like Walt said, they'll take the money, they'll flitter it away or whatever, and they'll just keep piling up the debt because they've already proven that the people we have elected to office have no fiscal discipline whatsoever.
Yeah, in regards to that, both the president and Congress are incompetent.
It's going to there has to be a balanced budget amendment that's got to have some teeth in it. Mm-hmm. That, in other words, people get fired or go to jail or something if they don't keep. Because see, right now, people think, well, gee, there's only 2 states in the union that have balanced budget. No. Montana has a budget amendment in the Constitution. We're one of only 2 states that actually follow it.
And ours doesn't actually follow it because we don't count our payouts for federal employee or state employee pension funds.
Retirement.
We're not planning for the pensions.
Well, here's the deal. The other 48 states that do have it, it's sitting there in the Constitution, totally ignored. Because they figure, well, we can't afford to balance our budget because we got too many people with too many neat stuff. And I'm just thinking, it's all going to come home to roost, ladies and gentlemen. So,
and maybe,
but I think if rich people would be, philanthropic enough to do this for the good of the country, then the very least we can do, then the very least the rest of us can do is to support a balanced budget amendment, so we don't have to keep doing it over and over again.
This is not a philanthropic exercise. I guarantee you, if Hillary Clinton proposed this, both of you would be like, no. I don't think that you'd be supporting it.
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
All right, I don't know. If it is specifically to retire our national debt, or at least our deficit, I mean, the debt and the deficit are two different things.
Yeah, I couldn't predict what the Trumpster's going to do, but as a businessman, as a business person myself, what I would do is you take a proposal like that and you say, well, here's a good point to it, here's some bad points, let's negotiate. And, now that he's pointed out, since he's running for president and he wrote that book called The Art of the Deal, I'm going to have to read that book. I want to see what makes him tick. I know what makes most businessmen people tick.
Why read that book? He's got a new book coming out this week.
It's probably tomorrow.
Maybe you can get a 2-for-1 sort of deal on Amazon.
We're going to take a break. Catherine and Ray will get you guys on. We have one line open. Fascinating topic of conversation. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. 1-800-568-5309.
One real quick thing I wanted to add about the discussion we just had.
Okay.
So the $10 million net worth or more, I think it's important. People will understand it's not income, right? So you're not getting liquid money here. This is net worth. So if you have a $10 million piece of property, you have $10 million net worth. Trump comes by, you hit the magic number, you need to pay 14.25% tax on that right now. Oh, okay. Well, now you're stuck with the fact that you've got to liquidate this somehow.
Yeah,
and it's not just
liquidity problem, because you're not going to have cash available to pay that.
And it's not just landowners. It's anybody, like if you have it in a business and that business has property or some items that it sells, you might have $10 million of worth that you're holding on to, but your hope is to generate more revenue out of that. Maybe expand, make a chain or something. But now you got to liquidate it fast. And in the process of that, if the government ends up killing companies and hurting growth, I don't think that'd be a good thing. That's why it's much better, instead of doing the Trump plan, to have something that is actually balanced every year, as Peter proposed, and works against itself over time, so that business people and everybody can expect it to happen.
But not only that, but it's got to be demonstrable. It's got to be something that you actually see real progress in every year, or people are just going to give up on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, you'll lose the support.
Anyway, let's get Catherine on the line. Catherine, good morning. You're on Talkback.
Oh, good morning. Well, John, you just sort of made my first point that I was going to say, is that it would lead to the liquidation of a lot of businesses and properties just in order to pay it, because it's seizing total assets. It's not seizing salaries or investment income or percentage thereof. So that's number one, and that's a huge, huge problem. Number two is that once you allow the government to start seizing assets to pay its bills and not just skimming off of profit, which is what taxes are, and or skimming salaries, which is what, of course, taxes do, they're not going to stop doing it with just one time, because you've broken that barrier.
Yep. Yeah. More than likely, you're right.
Well, and what you're going to expect is every time the government runs into trouble, which I have a feeling it's going to happen fairly frequently, they just pull out the big gun and hold it to the heads of those that can pay.
Exactly. And so what are businesses and wealthy people going to do? They're going to, run screaming from this country to do it. I mean,
that's why you put in the caveat, like Peter was talking about, that you have a balanced budget amendment and you can't dig this hole again.
I love that. And you believe that too, don't you, Catherine?
Yeah, well, the Easter Bunny comes by once a year too, doesn't he?
Yeah, you're 100% correct under the current structure, but that's not to say that the structure couldn't be fixed.
Yeah, Peter, thank you for that chuckle.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, you're welcome. All right, bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye,
Ray,
Catherine.
Ray, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Hello there. I turn my radio off now. Part of the problem is that the government the advantage they have is to stay in power is if they keep us broke, desperate, and uneducated on public policies.
Oh, we call that mushroom management. You know what mushroom management is? Is keep them in the dark and feed them crap.
Exactly.
I like it.
And the government's sole bureaucracy's sole goal is the continuation of bureaucracy with them in power. Bye.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess some cynical people would say that, like us. Anyway, 721-1290, we have all three lines open if you want to chime in here. So.
Well, I'm not done with my big proposals. Now, Trump limited his proposal to the United States, although he does want tariffs, it sounds like, for every country that trades with America.
Well, that's how he's going to pay for the fence.
Yeah, right.
No,
he's not going to pay. Remember, he's going to make Mexico pay for it.
Well, I stand corrected. That's how Mexico's going to pay for it.
And when O'Reilly asked him, how are you going to do that? He says, I have ways. I'll make them. I know the people down there. I'll make them pay for that fence or they'll wish they had.
I'm going to force them into a big hair contest.
Blown dry.
So Thomas Piketty, do you know Thomas Piketty at all? He's a very famous French economist / philosopher, deals with wealth in the 21st century, and he wrote a book that is actually probably the driver of the next generation of progressives. They will probably look back at this as a touchstone moment. Mm-hmm. And he proposes a global wealth tax.
Yeah.
And this is a piece from him on Reuters. They're talking about the piece. A global wealth tax and not a consumption tax is the way to go when it comes to fixing wealth inequality around the world, French economist and author Thomas Piketty told CNBC on Tuesday. Piketty, who laid out the vision in his book, Capital in the 21st Century, said, "It isn't good for the economy when the largest multinational corporations pay a lower effective tax rate than the smallest and medium-sized businesses." Quote, "The middle class feels that they are paying more than the very rich. This is not good because at some point later on down the road, if you want to support for globalization, it's important that broad groups in the population feel that they are benefiting from it," he said in an interview with Closing Bell. Piketty went on to say that there needs to be more global cooperation between countries about cross-border financial assets so that there is an equitable tax system that allows governments to invest in infrastructure and education. He also told CNBC that billionaire Bill Gates said to him, quote, "I love your book. I care a lot about inequality, and I don't want to pay more taxes. But I don't want to pay more taxes," end quote. Gates, who gives a lot of his money and fortune to charity, instead favors a progressive tax on high consumption instead of net wealth, Piketty said to him. However, Piketty thinks there are too many limitations surrounding what defines consumption. Quote, "A progressive tax on net wealth is better than a progressive tax on consumption because, first, net wealth is better defined for very wealthy individuals and consumption is very difficult to define," he said. "This is a better indicator of the ability of very wealthy individuals to contribute to the common good."
Didn't anybody read Atlas Shrugged? Mm-hmm. Who is John Galt?
Yes, who is that dude?
Because the more I hear about this, the more I keep seeing Ayn Rand's vision coming to pass. You make too much money, you've got to share. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But here's my question: if they want to do this, what would be the global policing agency that would be able to put the gun to the head of these rich people and say you must pay?
Yeah, well, who's the global IRS?
Right.
It would be probably a rubber baton instead of a gun.
Oh,
or it would be a strongly worded letter from the UN. Who knows? Very, very strong, with lots of red lines and stuff on it. You would be very, very fearful if you received this letter, I'm sure.
As a matter of fact, somebody might send a very negative tweet if you decided not to do it.
Of course, in some countries, they already have policies like this, and if you don't give them money, they kill you.
Mm-hmm.
What countries are those?
Well, China, for example, they'll just throw you in jail. Or even in...
they'll sell your body parts.
Well, no. They do that here, but different situation.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Those individuals haven't had a chance to earn any money yet, Walt. So,
they make money They're making money.
All right. Okay, we're up against the break, and we're really getting deep in it here. So 72112. Walt has a whole list of stuff he wants to talk about.
Yeah,
so
I want to talk about all the scams that are going on.
We're going to come right back. Stay with it. This is the Wednesday edition of Talk Back. I'm Peter Christian. That's John King over there. Of course, our good friend Walt Kero from Kero, Byington and Associates, our resident super CPA. Now, you wanted to talk about some scams.
Yeah, from a two-prong aspect. I want to talk about IRS tax scams and then just regular scams. But the first thing on tax scams from the IRS, if you out there tax-paying people, if you get phony phone calls you suspect are a scam, here's some things from the IRS that will assist you in dealing with these scam phone calls. The IRS identified 5 things that an IRS agent will not ask or demand of you. They will not ask a taxpayer about taxes due without first having sent a tax bill in the mail first. So you will get some written documentation first. So if you get a call over the phone that says, hey, pay your taxes and blah, 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 don't pay any attention to it because it's not legit unless there was a letter sent to you by the IRS first. Second, the IRS will not threaten you with arrest warrants or use of force for you to pay a tax bill. Third, the IRS will not ask you to pay your tax bill over the phone, require you to pay your tax bill via a specific method of payment. Fifth, the IRS will allow you an opportunity to appeal your tax bill if you choose to do so. The IRS will also not have the media contact you regarding tax matters. So if you receive a phone call from somebody saying you need to pay your taxes, if you haven't gotten a bill from the IRS to begin with, forget it. Hang up on them. That's probably the best advice, is just hang up on them. Yeah, they'll get mad and call you all kinds of names.
Especially when they call it a nice Russian accent. It's very important that to hang up on them as soon as possible.
Yeah, or Chinese or Nigerian or whatever it happens to be.
So you said questions that the IRS won't ask, and I had a flashback to that whole 501c3 scandal, right?
Yes.
And all of the questions they did ask of certain groups.
Like what are the contents of your prayers?
Or are you on Facebook or other social networking sites? If yes, provide copies of each pages. I'm reading actual questions that were in the transcript. Provide details regarding your relationship with Justin Binick Thomas. Just a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, what are the contents of your prayer?
Yeah, if we had time to...
God bless the IRS. Okay, you're cleared.
Yeah, if we had time today, I wanted to get into some of the latest from Lois Lerner.
Is there more? What's new?
There's more coming. There's more coming. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She's pleading the fifth of
we have 3 minutes before a break. You want to go ahead and we'll
get Eric on here just jumping into that right now, but it's kind of a follow-up to what John was just saying.
Let's get Eric on, because we try to put our callers first. Eric, go ahead. You're on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
I don't know how much this has to do with taxes per se, but you guys were talking about the need for more laws and balanced budget amendment and stuff like that. And I don't believe that we need a balanced budget amendment. I believe that the government's role to protect our rights is implicit in that. And we don't need another constitutional convention. With more laws will come more and greater obfuscation by our lawless government. What is sorely lacking is the backbone of the American people to punish their own government. And the government is becoming less and less divided. There's the lines between state and local, and individuals in government is becoming more blurred, and our government is becoming a monolithic whole where laws are coming down from the top, and there are politicians in Montana, and state and local politicians are bought off with federal funds in which they enforce federal law. And so as I'll say it again, what's sorely lacking is the backbone of the American people to punish our government, and Roy was getting at this yesterday when he spoke of civil war and rebellion. I wouldn't call it rebellion. I would call it duty, as the Declaration of Independence calls it. We have a duty to bring our government back into line. And I'd like to ask you, John, why you mocked him yesterday when you said Roy wants to throw on Gray.
I think it was Ray, but anyway.
No, I think he's right. I think it was Roy.
Oh, you're right. It was Roy. That's right. I'm sorry.
Basically, I'd like to say that mocking somebody is slander, John.
Well, throwing on Gray is a reference, of course, to the last time there was a revolution against the government that failed.
Yes.
So it was a historical reference. I don't see how it's mocking.
That is a mocking, John.
Okay.
As though he wants to. So it's some mindless slapping on of Gray, and this is not what he was calling for.
He was calling for. He was saying if things don't change, there will be a revolution.
Yeah.
So me referencing the one revolution that we had that failed miserably and ended with tragedy on both sides, I don't think it was outside of the box.
And it's a duty, John. If you poke a bear with a sharp stick, what is he going to do? If you keep poking if the government keeps poking us in the eye, what is going to happen? And that is exactly what's going on from our monolithic government. It's a monolithic government. The lines have blurred, and it's become one force against the people. What do you think is going to happen? Anyway, there you go.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the call. We're up against a break, 721-1290. You agree, disagree? We have all three lines open, and Walt still has what we want to talk about, Ms. Lerner.
Ms. Lerner, yes.
All right, we're going to come right back with more of that, and we're talking about finances and taxes and all sorts of things financial, so stay with us. Hold together. Okay, we're all pounding on the counter. 721-1290 is our number. That's John King. I'm Peter Christian, and, of course, Walt Kero joining us here in studio. This is Talkback, and we have a caller. Michael, you're on. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, John and Peter.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
Good. And we got Walt here, too.
And Walt?
Walt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
You know, the only information I really get about what's going on in the world is from you guys.
Oh, my goodness, you're in tough shape. May I recommend the Weekly Reader? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No internet, no TV. I'm an artist that just, looked at what's going on through your radio station.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So, it seems like your radio station is a big infomercial for the government.
Really?
And, 100%.
Oh, you mean when we have our public service announcements? Yeah.
If I want to know about Hillary, I just find out from you, and it's Hillary, or Bush, or...
Just so you know, we haven't mentioned Hillary or Bush all day today, as far as I know.
I know. So, anyway, I just want to back up Eric. I think he was your last caller, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would love to have him on for the whole Talkback show. Eric, if you're listening, try to make that work. I'll try to make it happen. But that is the grassroots. That is the soul of America right there. And you mock him so much. And
what did I say that was mocking to Eric?
Every time he calls in, you always disagree with him.
Well, just because I disagree doesn't mean I'm... Look, I think the Civil War was a horrible idea, especially for the South.
Let him have
but that's not mocking. That's having an opinion.
Why? But I know.
America
is where Eric is at.
All right. Well, you see,
America's where it's at. You're pushing the agenda by putting out whatever you can put out. That's where I'm at.
My agenda is that people don't take up arms.
Well, there you go. See that they say, and that's what I love. See, because Talkback is a conversation. You say something, we say something. You reply, we reply. It's kind of like sitting down over coffee with people and disagreeing about stuff. That does not make us mean or enemies or any of that stuff. I mean,
and
it doesn't make us. That doesn't mean we mock you either. Sometimes if you say something really silly, well, how many times have I been mocked on this program?
Well, I was going to say mocking does occur. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't. Sometimes I mean, it just happens.
I am the king of stupid statements sometimes. So,
but how do you have a conversation when a particular party to the conversation is totally fixated on one aspect, one part of the conversation? If that person is stuck on something, it's really hard to have a communication.
This is true. All right, 721-1290 is our number. So where are we on Ms. Lerner?
Oh, Ms. Lerner.
Yes,
okay,
yes, please.
Judicial Watch, a nonprofit 501c3 out of Washington, D.C.
Oh, no!
They file a lot of FOIA requests and lawsuits against our government. And they just recently, under a FOIA thing, the judge had documents obtained, given to Judicial Watch, and they got a memo, which is an official memo from October 2010, of a meeting between Lois Lerner and officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI. So they have a meeting, and there's an official memo from this meeting. And what was the purpose of the meeting? Was for a plan for the prosecution of targeted nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bill O'Reilly asks our president, if there's anything to the IRS allegations. And there wasn't a scintilla? Or
a smidgen.
A smidgen.
There wasn't a smidgen of corruption.
Smidgen of corruption, that's right.
Yeah,
well, obviously, Barack must not have been at this meeting between Lois Lerner, the FBI, and the Department of Justice.
Did they get to discover a smidgen and a half, or what?
Yeah, well, then here's another smidgen.
Okay.
is that the lawsuit, I mean, there's more memos, but there was other revelations that were found under this FOIA request that the Justice Department wanted IRS employees to turn over sensitive documents to the Justice Department before they gave them to Congress. Now, you've heard Rob, Mr. Nadelson, talking about separation of powers. I've talked about in the accounting auditing world where I come from, we have what's called segregation of duties. The whole functionary of both separation of powers and segregation of duties is very similar. Separation of powers is so that, government control and direction is divided between the legislative, the judicial, and the executive, right? So nobody can trump everything. You need to get approval. So that whole thing is designed to create government accountability. When you have lack of accountability, that's where in business and in accounting and fraud, if you segregate duties, the segregation of duties is so like, Peter, in your business, not one person can control the recording of a transaction from beginning to end. So typically you'll have a person who will make out the invoice for whatever work is done, and that another person makes the deposit for the payment of those services or products, and then the owner gets to see the bank reconciliation. So you got separate people looking at separate aspects of this, and that's all for the whole function of accountability. And so whether it's in government or accounting or whatever, what's going on here is an attempt to reduce the separation of powers. So anyway, thank God for Judicial Watch to bring this up. But there's going to be more and more coming out of this. What's the senator from South Carolina?
Mr. Gowdy?
Gowdy.
Yeah, now here's my question. So what? So what if eventually Lois Lerner, 10 years from now, is convicted of a crime? So what? I mean, the damage will have been done. The elections are over. The man who benefited from the bad targeting, the bad behavior, the targeting, has been elected to 2 terms in office. Mm-hmm. And so even if somewhere way down the road something happens, so what?
Oh, well, yeah, but his legacy will be hurt. Why? Why was his legacy be hurt? Because he'll go down as probably one of the worst presidents in the history of the United States. Mr. Nixon was accused of using the IRS to go after his enemies, remember?
The enemies list.
This is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But given the current media out there, they're giving Mr. Obama a pass on this.
You remember it's the media that went after President Nixon and ended up with his impeachment, his resignation from office. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
It's a different world.
It is a totally different world. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800. Was that because Nixon was a Republican? I don't know. Maybe because he was a crook. We're gonna take a break. 721-1290. We'll be right back. Ow. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5309. That's John King. I'm Peter Christian. We have Walt Kero joining us on the phone, and all three lines are humming here this morning.
Hot dog.
Have we talked about anything that you brought with you on your
just
list?
one thing. I have a few more. Well, no, two. We talked about Lois and tax scams. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we did have a comment on the tax scam. Elena says that the IRS is a tax scam.
That I don't know if I would say. I've said this before. It's not the IRS. It's the Congress that has arranged this so that the IRS is their whipping post. Because Congress passes the laws that created the IRS in the first place. So it's really Congress.
And then everyone says, shame on you. Don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah. Well, there's some rogue people inside the IRS. We're just talking about Lois Lerner being one of them.
Right. Well, she's at the top of the heap there, so she's one of the most visible, put it that way.
Actually, right now, it's Mr. Karskinen, right? Or
Koskinen.
And he might be stepping down because of another scandal about the actually, it was another report from the same group, a FOIA request. Remember, they said that they couldn't find the emails because turns out that she did burn her hard drive, but that was just one of 6 places the emails could be stored, 5 of which weren't checked.
Yeah, there's a story about emails, and we'll get into that later. That's good.
Interesting stuff. All right, we've got a caller on the line, though.
We have 3 callers on the line. Hugh, you are on Talkback. Thank you for calling, sir. Please go ahead.
I think it was your guest, but someone made the remark that they wanted to essentially, I guess, to paraphrase it, harm Barack Obama's legacy. And I don't think that's a good way of putting it. I have no interest, and I'm an opponent of Mr. Obama, in harming his legacy. What I want to do is defeat the policies that aren't working. And it's not personal. Once you personalize it, there's a large number of people out there in the audience that are going to think that you're against him personally. I could care less.
Well, I think there's both sides on this one. Like, first of all, if someone abuses their position of power, let's just pretend it's a local. Well, I shouldn't do that. I'm not going to point any names.
How about a state official?
Are we talking condemnation here?
Let's just say if you abuse your power while you're in power, of course it's going to look negatively on the future. But I think you make a good point. Like, that shouldn't be our goal as Americans. We want our country to be stronger into the future, and making sure that the government cleans up its act and hopefully has better policies in the future is the big benefit from this.
Yeah, I don't. His legacy would be harmed as a natural consequence.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
his policies, but that's not my goal. That would just be as inevitable as there's too many thunderclouds and then there's rain.
Right.
I don't think and I'm a conservative, a very conservative person, and I don't think that anybody should be out there to defeat Barack Obama.
Well, it's a little bit late. He's been elected twice. So,
and if what we've deteriorated to is harming his legacy, then we are after a person, not an ideology, and it's his ideology that I loathe, not him personally.
Gotcha.
Very good point.
Yes. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it. That's very well said. Dave, good morning. You're on Talk, Blake. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. About punishing presidents, I'm all for charging presidents and punishing them for wrongs they do while they're in office. As far as Nixon goes, he was charged. One of the charges against him was conspiracy to bribe criminals who had committed a burglary, and he should have been charged and convicted of that. And same with Clinton. I think he should have been charged and convicted.
And Nixon would have been had he not resigned and then been pardoned by President Ford.
Right, and on down the line. I think there's crimes Bush committed, George W. Bush committed while he was in office, using his office, in my mind, to a vendetta against Saddam Hussein. And I think these charges should go on. I mean, I think most presidents should wind up in jail after they serve their terms.
What a retirement.
Yeah, really.
I think that Dave's point is exactly why the Senate has failed. chooses not to join the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, anyway.
Right. But, if we don't have laws that are, if the presidents are above the law, then law ceases to work.
Well, imagine that, a president thinking himself above the law. I can't remember a single
Magna
instance.
Carta Redux.
Is that what happens when they get a phone and a cell phone and a pen?
Yeah, a cell and a pen. Hey, listen, Dave, thanks for the call. Harry, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. I want to get back to the taxes thing.
Sure.
I hear people complain about how complicated and everything it is. But whose fault really is it that their taxes are complicated? Mine isn't. I use the easy form. So, is it because they want to, like you say, pay as little tax as possible, so they start looking for deductions. But, if they really want to simplify it, they just pay the taxes on what they take and leave it at that. So, it's not the law's fault that's complicated. It's the people who want to take it. And I don't blame them. They want to do it, but guess what? It's your fault. And if you want to try to find all the deductions and all that, maybe that's your fault that it's getting complicated.
What do you think, Walt? Stop your whining.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
you said it was...
I would just like Harry to see some of the tax returns I prepare, because they end up being 100, 200 pages long. And there's obviously, there's rentals involved and businesses involved and whatnot. But if you're going to comply with the law as it's written, then you've got to go through all these complexities, alternative minimum tax and all that stuff, because the Congress, the Congress is elected by our society, and they see fit to socially engineer through the tax code, and that is something that'll probably never go away, but that's what's added to the complication.
Harry, I want to give you a final comment.
Yeah, how much of that complication is deductions, though, and how much? It's if you take no deductions, how simple? How much more simple would that be then?
Oh well, yeah, but you're only talking about half of the problem, because you're just talking about deductions. We're talking you got business income and rentals and capital gains and losses and what's considered basis and what's all deductions are one part of the issue.
Real quick, just a quick point of information, Harry. Have you ever done taxes for a business or a personal business?
I had my own business for a while.
Okay. Well, you know firsthand then. It can be very complicated to do tax forms.
Yeah, it was just me, so it wasn't that complicated.
Okay. But, if you have stock and you have property, and it gets really complicated pretty quick.
Yeah, because then you're having different levels of payment, but if you just take the same level of payment on everything, then it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, we're up against a break. Harry, thanks for your call, as always, and we'll be right back. Real quick 1-minute timeout. Hey, we're back on Talkback. We had about 5 minutes left in the program, and Walt, it is all yours.
Oh, I got a little bit of time frame here. Anyway,
go for it, man.
Just recently, we know where Lois Lerner's emails and backup tapes were destroyed.
Oh.
They found out, according, Mr. Koskinen testified that they were destroyed, and nobody knows how or where, but it was found out it was done by a unit, Americans for Tax Reform, found out that the IRS has a midnight unit in West Virginia.
What?
A midnight unit. Yeah, the midnight unit did what they do, backup tapes.
Sounds like a bad movie.
As many as 24,000 Lois Lerner emails were destroyed by an entity officially known as the Media Management Midnight Unit.
It's actually my stage name.
Yeah. In all, 422 backup tapes holding emails were magnetically, and you got to be prepared for this word, degaussed.
Oh, degaussed.
Degaussed. Degaussed.
That's when you take a big
maggot.
Back in the day, when we used to record on tapes, there was this big magnet that you would hold in your hand. You'd hit the on button, and you'd run that baby over the tape, and it would erase everything on that tape. Of course, it would sound like, but all the audio would be gone. So that's what a magnet does to audio.
So that's what happened to Lois Lerner's emails. And so then it is, and this is in spite of the fact that they were under instructions not to do so because of an agency-wide preservation order and congressional subpoena.
So basically, what they did, what she did, and what this midnight unit did was illegal.
Yes.
And so if it's illegal, in other words, if it's against the law, then you would think someone would be called to stand trial or to face a penalty.
Be accountable. Yep.
For violating this law.
Which she has.
Right.
Lois Lerner has been called to stand trial. And she has pled the fifth.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Obama's Justice Department, which really is the taxpayers' or citizens' Justice Department, has refused to prosecute.
That was under Eric Holder, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, has the new Attorney General made any strides in this direction?
Haven't heard a smidgen from her.
Well, she took on the soccer. She took on worldwide soccer. She's focused on that.
Oh, worldwide soccer?
Right, yes.
She took on FIFA. Or
FIFA, yeah.
Oh, maybe she's going to investigate Cecil. Who knows, huh?
I don't know.
I can't remember her first. Loretta Lynch, that's right.
Yeah. Ms. Lynch.
Loretta Lynch. And there's all sorts of country songs that could go with that, but I'm not going to go there. Okay.
Anyway, we had a couple of good tax items.
Yes. Hold on, I'm going to run this magnet over Peter real quick.
Yeah. DeGoss Peter.
Thanks for joining us. Anyway, we have 2 minutes, so if you want, so final word on, here we are in August, what kind of tax planning should we be doing?
Oh, okay. A couple of things for people out there who file partnership tax returns. In the highway funding bill, that just recently was passed,
right.
I thought Obama hadn't signed it, but he signed it last Friday. But included in there are some changes to income tax laws. Partnerships will now have to file for a calendar year by March 15th, and you'll get a 6-month extension. Also, C corporations and S corporations will continue to be filed by March 15th with a 6-month extension to September 15th. And for people out there who have foreign bank accounts and who have to file what we call FinCEN tax forms, they have a June 30 deadline right now. And with no extension.
June 30th?
Yeah, but going forward, yeah.
Isn't it like, last time I checked, it was August 5th.
That's right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But anyway, the whole world's gone mad. And, this whole thing with taxes and filing and stuff, it's only going to get more and more complicated. Computers have allowed it, but the tax laws have just been so engineered to deal with.
So how do we contact you?
Oh, call me, 549-2288. We have a fabulous website, kbcpas.net, and we'll be able to. We haven't got it finally negotiated, but we will have our ELP, Dave Ramsey ELP stuff on our website and logo, all that good stuff.
Good to see you, Walt. Thank you, sir.
Great to be here. Enjoyed it.
Tomorrow, sir.
One of the leading scientists against evolution will be on the show tomorrow. Dr. Stephen Myers out with a new book, Debating Darwin's Doubt, where he takes on all of his critics.
Wow.
Should be a fun interchange. We've had him on before. He worked in Montana as a young man.
Mm-hmm. All right, and that's going to do it for Talkback. Thanks, but Walt, it's always a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
You always spark a lot of good conversation. We appreciate it.
And we have some fun here, too.
Yes, we do. Have a little bit of fun every now and then. So I will now degauss myself and see you guys tomorrow.
That's vacation prep?
Yeah, there you go. Bye-bye.